this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video we're going to be making this Juke Box style box. The box element is 6 inches high, it's 4.5 inches across and 2 inches deep, and this one opens at the back like so. And I've added a domed shaker element to the top. I will go through making the box element at the base, and I will show you how I put together the top and came up with the sizes of the top, but a lot of the top element will depend on the look that you want for your curve at the top. So without further ado, let's put the project together. I'll just start by showing you the process that I went through when I was planning the overall look of the box. In case you want to make a box a different size, you might want to follow a similar process. I knew that I wanted the box element of the overall project to be 6 inches high. I therefore started with a piece of cardstock which was 6 inches long. As you saw at the beginning, the look of the box has a domed element at the top. I took my various circle dies and laid them underneath the top edge of the box until I'd got the look I wanted for my particular dome. Once I'd established the size of circle I wanted, I cut it out of some scrap. I sat it behind my 6-inch piece and just moved the 6-inch piece up until I was happy with the domed look at the top, which came to here. And it just so happened, and it was purely coincidental, that I've got my 6-inch box at the bottom and then a 2-inch section in the dome. So this gives me my overall 8-inch height. I marked on my scrap of cardstock where the right hand edge of my circle sat on the top edge of my base cardstock. So that's here. And I then just drew a pencil line across so I could identify on the circle underneath how much of it I was actually going to use for the dome. If I lay this piece up, it just so happens that this is in line with 4.5 inches. When I make the base box, I'm going to use a 4.5 inch width, a 6-inch height, and I've chosen a 2-inch depth to suit my gift. Therefore, to make my 4.5 by 6 by 2-inch box, I've one piece which is 9 inches by 7 inches. Along the 9-inch side, this is scored at 1/2, 2.5, and 7. And on the 7-inch side, this is scored at 1/2 and 6.5. This is going to form the front and the sides of the box. And the second piece, which forms the back opening of the box, is 5 inches by 7 inches. And this is scored along the 5-inch side at 1/2, rotate, and on the long side score at 1/2 and 6.5. If you can see this faint line here, please ignore it. This is only scored on 3 sides at 1/2 inch. You'll then need 2 pieces which are 4.5 by 2, and these will form the base and the top of the box. We'll start with the largest piece. Fold and burnish along all of the score lines. Have your piece in a portrait orientation. I've got my 1/2 inch glue tab at the bottom. We're going to start by cutting away the bottom left and right hand squares. Take a wedge from the ends of the glue tab, and then we're going to cut up each of the score lines within the 1/2 inch side to create our glue tabs. Take a wedge from the end of those and repeat on the other side. And then I'm just going to take a notch from the end opposite the glue tab, just a finger notch, roughly halfway, like so. Then take our next section, fold and burnish the 3 score lines. Remove the bottom left and right hand squares. I'm going to round off the corners of this piece here, which is going to be the flap, which is going to sit down inside the box, and then take a wedge from the remaining tabs. We can now join our pieces up, so using whatever is your preferred adhesive, I'm going to add adhesive to the long glue tab on the main piece. Sit our door element on top. I'm going to add tape to these 3 sections. Leave this one clear because this is the lid. I'm going to sit my base on the longest one to start with, and then pull around the sides to complete the box. I'm going to cut my section for the back of the box out of black, and I want it to be this length plus ½ an inch to allow for a tab for the base to sit on. I don't want to cut the whole circle and cut it down. I'm just going to use this as a guide so I can do a partial cut, but make sure that I have got enough cardstock to allow me a ½ an inch tab. So I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine. I'll cut this one down to the actual size that I need. Take the circle I've just cut. I'm going to lay this one on top, so just rotate it so it's lined up with a track. Score in line with the edge, so I'm using the scrap circle as a template, and then line my score line up with the ½ an inch mark on my trimmer and just trim down to make a glue tab to stick the base onto. Fold and burnish, and let's take the ends off of the glue tab. I'm now going to do exactly the same thing but in acetate. I've got my front and my back element. We now want to make the strips which are going to join the 2 pieces together. I'm going to take my back element, sit it so that the edge here where the score line is lined up with the top corner of the score line, push against the teeth at the top and just roll this gently and slowly until I get to the opposite end, the score line on the other side, and to just put my finger in there. So that's telling me this is there or thereabouts 6½ inches. I want to be able to have a glue tab at either end. I'm going to cut my piece to 7½ inches, and my glue tab may then be slightly under or slightly over. My box is 2 inches wide, and then I'm going to have a 3/8 of an inch tab either side. I've got my joining strip, which is 2 3/4 by 7½. And on the short side, I'm going to score at 3/8, rotate and score at 3/8. Fold and burnish along the score lines. I'm going to add a gentle curve into this because it will make it easier when we come to glue the 2 pieces together. And now cut a series of teeth into the 2 glue tabs either side. I've cut my teeth in and then I've added red tape to the across the top of the teeth. And if you're using red tape, I would recommend that you add it not as I've done here, but on one side where the back will be attached to, you add it to the top side of the teeth, and on the other side where the acetate will add to, you add it onto the bottom side of the teeth. Now, with this project, you need to think about the decoration of your pieces before we start to add them all together. I know that on the back section of the dome, on the inside, I will have some decorative paper. Therefore, I will cut my decorative paper, stick my side panel onto my dome, and then add my decorative paper over the top, which will then cover the teeth. We'll start by sticking the long strip onto the back. I'm going to hold the strip, go to roughly half. I know that I've got ½ an inch leeway, and start to stick these into place. I'm going to just do it gently to start with, so that if I need to take the piece off and restart, I can do that. So that looks about right at that end. I'm happy with that. Let's do this side. Let's fold this tab back out of the way momentarily. Cut off the extra teeth, those removed. Now I know that the back and the front are the same size, so my plan is I'm going to sit this in my scoreboard with the edge up against the left hand side like so. The track that the end comes to, I'm going to just score straight across like so. Do the same. If you need to get in a track, just move it slightly so you're in a track. This one I'm going to go up. So these sections beyond the score line are going to be my glue tab for when I stick the base on. So I'm going to add my decorative paper into the back now. I've added my holographic silver into the back. Now you do really need to think about the order of construction. I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to just shape the ends of these tabs on the side section and burnish those across with my fingers. Do the same this side. Now an element of this will depend on what you're going to be putting inside. I'm going to be adding some sequins. My thought process is I will add glue onto the two side tabs and then adhere the base section into place. And the base section is 4.5 by 2 inches. I will then add my matte layer onto the inside, which will cover the side glue tabs like so. I'm then going to secure the back on the underside of the base, add in my shaker elements, and then secure my acetate section on the front like so. So in terms of preparation, I'm going to add tape to the underside of the side tabs and to the top side of this tab at the base and to the top side of this acetate piece. I've added my tape onto all the sections, and the last thing I'm going to do is rub my anti-static bag on the inside of the acetate, just so that it helps to stop any of the sequins from sticking to the inside. Start by adding this end on, like so. Add on the other end, secure this end. So let's pull that and stick that in. I want to get a good seal because I'm going to be putting shaker elements in. I'm just going to burnish around and seal that. Now I'm going to put in my matte layer, and I've cut this to just a 1/16 of an inch. So it's 1 7/8 plus a 1/16 by 4 3/8 plus a 1/16. Put my sequins in. Take my front acetate. This is going to push up against the top like so, and the teeth are going to come down. So we'll take the backing off of the red tape, put that in the top like so. Bring down the teeth and push those over. So I'm happy with that, and then I can just push down the base, burnish that down, and that is my shaker element in place. I'm going to add red liner tape over the acetate here on the base of the box, and then I will adhere the rest of it with construction glue. Okay, let's get this adhered. Stick that on the top, get that lined up. Push that together. Make sure your front and your back are even. And to let that dry, and then I'm going to continue with the remainder of the decoration. Here's my finished piece. You can see I added a red trim all the way around on the front, and I ran it around the front and the sides to conceal where the box and the top joined. I then cut the trim into two pieces along this side, so one piece covers the door element and one piece will stay adhered to the top dome. So the box will open like so, and this strip will remain in place. I'll give you the sizes of the back and the side. The back is 4 3/8 by 5 3/4, and the sides are 1 7/8 by 5 3/4. And then I cut this front panel down to size once I'd added on my bars. These are 3/8 of an inch, but this is of course optional. You can decorate your box however you so choose. Overall, I'm really happy with how the box has come out, and I think it's a fun design which would be easy to resize. I hope you've enjoyed today's project. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.